Yeah, this is the Seton Rivals podcast, where each and every week during football season, we deliver action, we deliver news, notes, we've got solid opinions, we've got everything from A to Z. We touch on all 8 high schools in the city of Chandler, and this is our 14th football season, and we continue to thrive. A big part of us thriving now is we're now in partnership with the city of Chandler, and it is going to be fantastic. We closed the show last week by saying Chandler is the city of champions, and that is certainly undeniable. It has been great from start to finish. And folks, we're not finished. And I can tell you another guy who is not finished, and that's my partner, the founder of the Seton Rivals podcast, Ralph Amsden. And Ralph, last week, 1 win, 1 loss, but we'll get to those teams in a second. But how you been? Football season on all levels is getting closer and closer.
I've been great. It's been a cool week, and I mean, definitely credit to you for getting us linked up with the city of Chandler. Maybe the proudest I've been in 15 years of covering high school sports in the city of Chandler. 14 years of podcast is just seeing, like, outgoing mayor Kevin Hartke, who I've known for a long time, was friends with his son in high school, and seeing the city council post our player of the week, which we'll get to, and just seeing the excitement. One of our most viewed podcasts ever. We've had more to listen to podcasts before this, but one of our most viewed ever. Sure. And to just see the excitement and for the city to be involved in what we're doing is humbling. It's fun. I could not be more proud to have been raised up, have my kids in Chandler, Arizona. I know I do this all from the East Coast now, but it's just been a fantastic week. I did get to go to a different CHA city. I went over to Charleston this last weekend just to kind of get my mind right, get ready for to dive into football season and be locked in for the next 3.5 months. And wild city, weird city, definitely a lot of definitely a ton of history. I mean, they got everything. They got sports and food and museums, and it was a really, really good time. But it kind of helped me just get centered and locked in. And I had an awesome time this weekend simulcasting the Valley game and the Seton game. Feed on the Seton game was ticking me off a little bit, but did get to go back and rewatch it in its entirety. Game was closer than it looks.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Very, very true. We'll dive into those teams in a second. There's so much other sports that we could do a whole nother podcast about. There's 2 topics I want to just briefly get your opinion on. 76 teams in the NCAA tournament. I know that's not any breaking news or anything like that. I don't like it. I remember when it was 32. Now it's 76. I'm not a fan. Quickly, your thoughts on it.
I get it. I got somebody I work with who always says college sports runs on hope. And so to be able to have a piece of that hope is what keeps a lot of fan bases going. It can affect your employment, to have your job's hands in the hands of an employment committee or a selection committee. That can be a lot to deal with. I think that the tournament was fine as is. I'm not a big fan of the actual play-in games, even though Arizona State has benefited from it. Sure. Multiple times. I don't like seeing, especially those 10 matchups. Like, no, those are just tournament teams. Like, we don't need that level of appetizer. So I don't always think more is better. Am I going to watch it? Yeah, I'm going to eat all this garbage they serve to me. I'm going to say thank you afterward. But if it was up to me, we would have kept it at 64. I think that there is no better weekend in all of sports. Opening weekend for football is cool, but opening weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament, still my all-time favorite thing. Probably always going to be my all-time favorite thing, unless this ruins it. I mean, 76 feels like way too many games to keep track of, and you're still gonna have people complain. There's no cure to complaining, and so you always have to remind yourself the only reason to ever make anything bigger is to cash in. And cashing in is cool if it's about the survival of a product. But if it's about growth for the sake of growth, I don't always agree with it.
And also, it doesn't allow the tournament to breathe. By the time you figure out everything, who's playing on that selection Sunday night, who's playing and where, okay, you used to have 3 full days to get your brackets together, to figure out what's what. You had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 out here. That's when you tip it off. You blink, and now on that Tuesday, you've got these games in Dayton and now Wichita, Kansas. Like, again, who's playing?
Yeah.
It needs time to breathe, and 76 teams certainly is not giving us a chance on that.
Well, we never retract. We never retract. And I'm all for experimenting as long as it comes with some type of provision. And this is actually what's kind of cool about Arizona high school football, right? So, let's say that you are team 75, or you're just anywhere from 65, on. If you go 2 years and you don't have a single team win 2 games in the tournament that was outside the original 64, then you should retract, because the data is going to show you that these teams aren't necessarily worthy of being part of this, and you should adjust. The Arizona high school football, even though some of us were screaming about this before it actually happened, once they got the data that the 8 seed from 4A was going to get boat raced every single time by the 1 seed, they made adjustments.
Correct.
So, the Open Championship was expanded in the state of Arizona. It's benefited the city of Chandler greatly. So we have every reason to praise it.
Absolutely.
But once they realized that 8 seed was going to the woodchipper every single time, and it was depriving a Marana or a Desert Edge of an opportunity to actually chase a title amongst similarly yoked teams that they happened to be better than that year, they adjusted. I don't see the NCAA tournament ever adjusting in a way that retracts it to be a better product. That's the type of idea that get you fired. That's the beginning of Jerry Maguire, right?
Right.
They said less clients, more personal. And then they were like, shrink, never, always grow. This is America. So I appreciate Arizona high school football when you look at the NCAA and you see that they never proactively adjust or adjust based on data in a timely manner. They only ever grow. And so it actually, a thing that used to bother me about Arizona high school football, when you look at it in comparison to NCAA, we're actually not in too bad of a situation.
I agree. No, I definitely agree. And the next point I was going to make, I think I'll save it for you and Adam Beadle. Adam Beadle's on assignment this week. Some of those NFL players coming back to college football. That's a totally different thing, and we will save that for next week. But let's start off with the Seton Catholic Sentinels. They fall to the Round Valley Elks 30-14. We know this team from up north is good. They're championship good, obviously. They play real good, hard-nosed football. And in the end, though, it's great to see Brady Hayes and Patrick Conley connect for a long score. Like you said, Ralph, the game was closer than the final score indicated. Round Valley, in the last 12 calendar months, has defeated Seton Catholic 3 times, but it was great to see Matt Hanshaw and the squad, the red and gold, get back into pads, and the optimism is still very, very high.
Yeah, I took 2 things away from this game. Number one, Round Valley just keeps reloading.
Yes.
With some of these kids from Eager. I mean, Jaden Crick, sophomore, playing on both sides of the ball. I think he was one of their leading rushers. He also, I think, had, if I have the right player, because the feed was cutting in and out, I think he changed the game. I genuinely do, because there was an opportunity right before halftime for Seton to extend a lead. They got into a 3rd and long situation, and they just ended up taking a devastating sack. But the momentum was on Seton's side, and you could see how well coached they were and how methodical they were in their drives down the field. And it was extremely encouraging. Like, they had a lead in the second quarter and were moving the ball to build on it.
Correct.
They end up trying to convert the 3rd down, and I think it turns into like a 20-yard loss. But you watch Round Valley, and they don't make a ton of mistakes.
Right.
And their punter, he would average like 46 yards a punt, and they forced Seton Catholic forced them to punt 6 different times. That's
radical, big for the Sentinels. That's
radical improvement over last year. They held what was essentially a talented quarterback, a running quarterback, but a talented quarterback, to 9 for 28 passing. On a 32% completion percentage, and the 1 touchdown pass was killer. That was right before halftime. It gave Round Valley the lead. They never surrendered it. But I left this game encouraged, and I am not a there are no moral victories person. There is a ton to be encouraged by. Just the play calling on offense alone.
Yes.
And the aggression of, Corey Edwards in the backfield, he was getting touched a few times before he even got back to the line of scrimmage. He punished a lot of those guys who reached him first. That was so cool to see. And, they're going to eventually have opponents in which he's going to be able to do some of that to the linebackers and secondary and play calls to the big ones. So keep chipping away at the rock. Definitely an encouraging first half, definitely a lot to learn, and even some opportunities where that maybe they're kicking themselves a little bit because, I know it's no risk it, no biscuit, but that third down, if you punt, maybe they don't score, maybe it's a different game in the second half, but they were kind of in a place where, it made sense to go for it. Didn't make sense to take a massive loss, but you live and you learn. That's the defending champion that you're going up against.
Absolutely, and that is a championship squad. I got to see them last year defeat Valley Christian in the semifinals, the 3A semifinals. But, yeah, I think Matt Hanshaw and crew also just getting out there to practice. I got to see them practice after we did the podcast last week, and just a real, just vibrant coaching staff, an assistant Coach Young, obviously Coach Hanshaw, getting to meet some of the guys, and they really appreciate what we're bringing to the table with them and how the communications back and forth, but more so what Hanshaw is doing. He was like, hey, you know what? We're going to move the ball. We're going to push. We're going to play up tempo. And that's what they're doing. That's what they want to do consistently. So, yeah, they definitely played a lot better than what the final score was. And I think, yes, indeed, Ralph, they will have some opponents that they will be able to handle. And anytime you're behind a coach, that's going to mean an extra win or two at some point over the course of the year. This is it's a program that's got a lot of boys in it now. So overall, I think the future is definitely bright for 1150 North Dobson Road. They do have their work cut out for them this week. Short road trip. They beat Santan Charter last season, but the Roadrunners are coming off a 65-0 win over Apache Junction. The Valley Christian Trojans. This team might surprise us. I know it's week 1. Trust me, folks. I know that. It's only week 1. But that Sabino team that they shut out had a lot of returning starters. They've now beaten Sabino 3 times in a single calendar year. This is a team that I think they're going to gel. It was a scoreless game for 3 quarters, and then Austin Shooter, our game changer of the week, he finds Titus Higginbottom for a touchdown early in the 4th quarter for the lone score. Ralph, they overcame 3 fumbles. Obviously, you don't want to have that many turnovers in a game, but defensively, Noah Lewis with a couple picks, and they held their own, and this was a nice week 1 win for Jake Peterson's crew.
I agree. I got to ask you a question, Brett. When's the last time you remember anyone in any of the teams that we cover in this podcast getting the ball 30 times?
Wow. That's
because that was, DeAndre Dickerson, 30 carries for 191 yards.
I don't recall. Yeah, that's a lot of carries for one individual. And the fact that he can do that, I think you got 2 factors to look at. The fact that they truly have a 30 carry back, and the fact that he can break for 2 bills. Sabino is good. So, again, over the course of the season, if DeAndre Dickerson keeps doing what he's doing or shows what he did in week 1, they've got some people. And Valley Christian, as we know, they've I don't want to say they just reload, but this is a team that's no longer thin every other year. They've got guys who stay in that program and consistently develop a winner.
Yeah, I tell you what, 7-0 might not be an encouraging score for some, especially when the other two victories you talked about happening in this calendar year showed a lot more flash offensively. But we know that run game and defending the run travels, right? We know this. And to rush for almost as many yards with one player as you gave up as an entire team is incredibly encouraging. They held Sabino to 66 yards rushing, 3 yards a carry. That's impressive. You know, there weren't a whole lot of good teams Valley Christian's been able to do that against.
And Shooter himself had 60 plus yards of running, let alone Dickerson.
Exactly. And then if you take away, you know, Sabino did have some opportunities to score in this game, and they're probably kicking themselves that they didn't finish. But, you know, you create 2 turnovers, you hold them to under 200 yards of offense. 47 yards of that came on one play. They, you know, they had a 147-yard pass, and outside of that, under 150 yards of offense given up by this Valley Christian team. So, yeah, a nail biter comes down to the 1 touchdown pass. It was a pretty touchdown pass, too.
Yes,
I
it
love
was.
seeing those highlights everywhere. And it had to feel very satisfying. I mean, when you're in an SEC-style 0-0 game, man, nothing feels better than breaking the seal on throwing a ball over the top. So, shout out to Austin Shooter. Defensively, I know he got the praise for making the play when it counted. But defensively, this may be one of the best efforts from Valley Christian we have ever seen. And if they can build on it offensively, I think it's easier to build offensively than it is defensively. You can always adjust defensively to try to cover up for some weaknesses. But, you know, it's much harder to grow as a defense, get more skilled as a defense. So for this to be your starting point, incredibly encouraging. I think it's going to provide a ton of confidence to a young squad that has now been tested and passed that test.
Yes, indeed. And the Sholo Cougars come to town this week. It's a team that Valley actually shut out last year 6-0. So, hey, we'll see if they can post back-to-back shutouts on consecutive years. But right now, yes, great to see VC 1-0. The Jacob Rudder era is here. This will be their final season in 5A before moving up to 6A next year. Quarterfinalists a year ago. They'll take on the Willow Canyon Wildcats, who they took care of in last year's opener. Ralph, we talked about their schedule last week. It's tough, but I think this is a team, even though they've got a lot of different new guys for us, so to speak, they can blend, they can gel quickly. And the one thing, though, the Knights are no longer going to sneak up on anyone. People know that ACP is out there, whether you're around the corner or on the other side of the state.
Yeah, and I know, the interesting thing for Coach Rudder is, on one hand, he does not have to manufacture adversity. He is their 4th coach in 4 years. We've said this a bunch of times. So you don't need to create motivation. You also, 2 years in a row, you graduate 40 seniors, then 20. You've turned over the roster.
True.
So this was going to be a new head coach for most of these players anyway.
Great point. Very good point.
So, that's not going to be this insane experience for a lot of the kids on the team. So you do have to find a way to manufacture that adversity in these kids who weren't necessarily going to be part of what they were doing anyway. And I love the idea of Coach Rudder. I think he told Sollenberger magazine that nobody is counting on Arizona College Prep to win. And they printed that quote in their top 10 rundown where they put ACP number 8. So clearly someone is counting on them to be competitive, but you gotta get it into these kids' heads that they are the underdog so that they can play like the underdogs they have been in previous years. I love that some of their most experienced players are on the offensive and defensive line. I think that will really help set the tone. And I hope that they do that. I hope this is a game where they come in and they really try to establish who they are on the line of scrimmage. They're not the little engine that could anymore.
Correct.
They're big. They're gonna have more students than most of the schools that they play.
Isn't that weird? Because when they started, they were in an elementary school.
It is weird, but I always, anytime something blows up like this, I think back to, the gold rush, right? Like everybody runs to the thing that they want to be a part of. They want to be part of that success. People know what's up at ACP. They know the education that's available to them. They know the extracurriculars that are available to them. They know that it's a brand new facility. They know that it's a great neighborhood. Don't always know if the coach is going to be there next year. But, the fact that so many people have pursued opportunity and education, I've told you a bunch of times, had I stayed living where I was living in Maricopa at the time, I would have sent my kids to Arizona College Prep. I thought it would have been one of the better options for them. And at the time, it was to not get swallowed up by a more than 2,000 person school, but that's not the case anymore. And so, I think of the gold rush. I think of the city of Chandler. When I moved there was like 35,000 people, and cotton fields south of Chandler and Alma School and nothing to the east. So, this is just an incredible opportunity this year for ACP to establish themselves and to really erase any memory. The way that Casteel kind of did last year, that they were once a small school with a small population. This is just really the opportunity for them to put their stamp on the fact that they are one of the city of Chandler's juggernauts.
Yes.
Interesting thing I've been thinking about, Brett, is within the hierarchy of the schools in Chandler, I think it would be natural to put Perry above ACP based on the history, based on the school size. But I think really what's at stake for ACP is to be school 4. They're chasing Perry and Casteel, not to be, school 6, but to be school 4.
You're right.
I think that's what's on the line for them. You're in Buffalo Bills territory of, reaching championship games. If they get one of them, then you gotta consider it, right? So
correct.
They're already a bigger school than Casteel. They've already had more title appearances than Perry, granted at different levels, but a lot, Perry had their time in 5A as well, where they were beating a lot of teams and not beating Chaparral, and they moved up. They made a title run in 6A with Brock, and now the way people think about Perry has been changed forever. It's a lot easier to gain a reputation than it is to shake one. And so they're in the process of gaining a hell of a reputation. And if they can do it with a 4th coach in 4 years, then how special this place is.
Absolutely. Jacob Rutter's in a great position because, yes, he's obviously they've been behind all their coaches, but just his age. I mean, he's in a spot to grow with him. He's had the touch of 6A already, both as a player and an assistant. So Rutter's certainly the right guy for the job. And yeah, we are expecting some solid things from ACP, certainly over the next few years. I'll be over at Perry High School helping to usher in another new era on Friday night. That's what we have with Jeremy Hathcock and the Perry Pumas. They were 6-6 in each of the last 2 years. They won some playoff games, which obviously is very important. He's a winner. Hathcock is a winner. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be a certain toughness that I think the school has ever had from a football standpoint. I think Hathcock is going to instill something in that program that they've never seen before. Ralph, for me, this is a team that's going to win the games that they're supposed to win. And they'll probably, and maybe people will be saying, oh, how come you didn't say that about us? They're probably going to fall short against some of the teams that are on their schedule that have had championship appearances historically. For me, where I see this going is the measuring stick is against the Higleys, the Mesas, the Sal Points, kind of those mid-range 6A teams. Cactus Canyon, that's their first opponent. They used to be Cesar Chavez. We'll see what goes on. I expect them to defeat Cesar Chavez / Cactus Canyon, but I'm intrigued by what the Pumas bring in this 2026 edition.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the most fascinating team that we cover. This is Jeremy Hathcock's 24th year coaching football. He got more experience than I think probably the rest of the Southern region combined.
That's right.
Do you remember that Dan Lanning clip before the Colorado game that they leaked out to pump everybody up? We talk with our pads.
Oh, I do. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they're playing for clicks. We talk with our pads. That's kind of how Jeremy Hathcock has always struck me as a coach. Man, a few words. If he does have something to say, he's going to make it stick. I was reading through the Sullenberger magazine and I saw that like every coach was eager to send over some notes on their team. Perry got none. And so, this is one where it's like, what we're going to find out what Perry is by how they play on the field. They're going to earn their reputation in that way. I'm happy to sit here and pump up some of Perry's players. We saw special traits out of Amos Augustine.
Yes.
Last year. Truly special. I know you're a Talon Frazier believer. I know there's a lot of other people that are out there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does and wondering what his usage is going to be. Because when you get to Perry's level, there's not a ton of people who are doing it at a high level on both sides of the ball.
True.
Talon Frazier, old school. He can go out and he can get you 8 solo tackles or he can get you 95 yards rushing, maybe do it in the same game.
Right. So, I think that's special. Like he first earned my respect, not last year, but the year before when they went over to Chandler and defeated the Wolves. He played the game of his life. I mean, I don't like to give out that quote unquote warrior status, but he balled out in that game and he got warrior status.
And then we talked about it last week. It's the Cale Snyder show. He's got his brother coming up behind him, who is also extremely talented. This summer, he looked like a man on fire. He looked like a man on a mission, out to really prove his status as somebody who could throw the football. With his size, I think there's people looking at the quarterback who's over at Queen Creek, who's now at Clemson, and saying, what is Cale just going to go out there and, run people over? He's like, no, I can do it all. And he showed that in 7-on-7 where it's not an option to lower your shoulder and blow up some leather helmeted defensive back. So, he was dealing, I think they won tournaments in Southern Arizona, Northern Arizona. I want him to prove anybody wrong who's doubting him and anybody right who's a fan. I'm on the train with him this year. And, there's a guy that plays college football. His name is Josh Hoover. He played at TCU and Indiana picked him up and everyone's just talking about like, oh yeah, well, he's on the heels of Fernando Mendoza. So you'll never live up to that. And he threw his 12 interceptions last year. So you can expect that Indiana's going to fall off. And I wonder if they're in some, similar sentiment toward a Cale Snyder, who you're at the school that the Purdy brothers built. You threw 12 picks last year and, you're never going to live up to that. And I just don't think that's the case. I think they're in a very interesting region. They have a fantastic coach who not a lot of people know this, but I think the first 3,000-yard passer in the state of Arizona was coached by Jeremy Hathcock. When he has guys that can throw, he makes sure that it's an offense that passes the ball. When he's got guys that can run, he will beat you to death in the running game. He will do, I think what makes him such a special head coach is he will work with the tools afforded to him. So,
and that's good. He's not trying to change anything. No, I think, and that's why he's been a winner. Sure.
Yeah. I'm just very, very excited for this year, for Perry, for them to write a new story. I loved Coach Ortiz. I was rooting heavily for Coach Ortiz. I still am. But they wanted to go in a different direction, and they brought somebody into the district who was a thorn in the side of the district for the longest time. At Desert Ridge, when we got our start here, we were talking about, Desert Ridge,
Desert Ridge.
Against Basha, Desert Ridge against Hamilton, and some of the really tough games. And then what they did to Chandler, maybe the best Chandler team to not win a title in 2015, with DJ Davidson, that's burned just absolutely burned in my memory as one of the most overachieving teams of all time. And if he's still got that in him, we saw what he did at Blue Ridge. We saw what he did at Verado. This is not going to be a bad football team. High floor, but what is the ceiling?
Sure.
Could it be 8 wins? Could it be, and I'm talking like including, a playoff. I think that would be extraordinarily encouraging for kids out there who are considering where to play high school football with a ton of great options within 3 miles of Perry's campus. Stay home, play for Jeremy Hathcock.
No, it's true. It's just funny how our memory can go very, very deep, because the game you're referring to, Desert Ridge against Chandler semifinal, if I'm correct, that was Chase Lucas' final high school game, and I thought it was the game in which Colby Taylor broke his leg. Was that the game? He
did break his leg in that game, yes.
Yeah, that was wow. That's I'm going to say our memory is so fantastic. And the last time that Cesar Chavez / Cactus Canyon and Perry were on the same field, September 20th, 2019. That's the last time that those two teams have hooked up, almost 7 years ago. The Casteel Colts, defending 6A champions. Thursday night, they'll take on Red Mountain at home. Tough matchup to begin the season. Last time that those two teams played, November 20th of 2020, a 20-19 win over the Mountain Lions. So yes, these two teams, Ralph, they don't get after it often in that game. And we talk about bringing it back. Landon Jury had a touchdown pass. And my host over at Lake Forest College, when I made the visit, Jace Knutson, he scored a couple of touchdowns in that game. So Ralph, Casteel, we know that this is a strong team, but again, they're not sneaking up on anyone, and they've got a very tough week 1 opponent in a Kyle Enders coach team.
Yeah, so we're going to test this hire that Joe Bushman made right out of the gate. I guess he went out and got somebody he's worked with before, maybe at the collegiate level in Oregon, in Renato Felina, to come in and work with the offensive line. They're going to get tested. This is one, maybe the best week 1 game that doesn't involve. We're kind of at a point, and I'm going to get a text over this. I hate that I'm going to say this out loud, but I think we're genuinely at a point where people put Red Mountain above Brophy in the hierarchy of Arizona high school football. Maybe not way above, but like it's there.
They're there.
Yeah, and so I think it'd be fair to say a defending champion against a perennial, open threat is a great opening matchup, maybe the best. And so I'm gonna get some Brophy texts. That's all. Go beat Red Mountain and I'll shut up. But I love that special attention is being paid to the offensive line at Casteel, lest anybody believe that this team is soft or a merchant of having a very athletic quarterback. No, like they want to go out, they want to protect this quarterback, and they want to be able to run the ball. And so I love that that's a priority for them. The rankings, the preseason rankings have Casteel very highly considered, which is interesting to me, because there are some really good, like, to see Casteel above Centennial in the Sullenberger rankings. It's almost shocking. Right?
That is,
and one spot below Liberty. And even more interesting is, the guys who write for the Sullenberger, your Brian Bergner's, your Jason Skoda, who I love, Jose, who you worked with for a very, very long time. They all have Casteel in their next 8. They all expect Casteel to be an open division playoff team this year, including Andy Morales down in Tucson. And a fun fact about that, they also think Perry's going to be in the open.
Very true.
They also, all of them have 3 Chandler teams in their top 4. Every single one.
They're right about that.
The preseason prediction of all 4 of these writers who live and breathe Arizona high school football is that 5 Chandler teams will appear in the Open Division playoff.
Isn't that crazy?
Five out of 12, half, one city. Unreal.
It is. It's a strong conference. I mean, and I do like the way, and you mentioned the whole adjustment scenario earlier in the show, Ralph. I like the fact that, yes, if you make the Open and you fall early, you get to drop back down into 6A. That makes it a lot more competitive because we've got so many teams, and I'm not just talking about the CUSD area, just the Brophies, the Red Mountains, teams that fall into that mix that are not, dare I use that word, elite, but teams that are not in that upper echelon, that Final Four material, but still are very, very strong. You get an excellent brand of football in 6A. And that's really been the case ever since the Open began, that the 6A was never looked upon as, okay, oh, that's just the number 9 team and some others. No, it's always been looked at, this is a really good brand of football. And now that they've revamped the format a little bit, I think it makes it even that much more challenging and that much more appealing for coaches, the players to get after it, and for the fans and supporters of their school to have a big time interest. So it's just great stuff. Next up, the Hamilton Huskies. They open on a Thursday night against Brophy, team we just spoke about. They'll take on the Broncos over at Central High School on the road. A year ago, Hamilton hung 70 on the Brophy Broncos. I don't think Hamilton scores that many this year in their opener, but the Broncos are not, at least from what I'm seeing and reading, they're not the team that they were a year ago. They've still got some talent. Brophy always has talent, but I think Brophy may take a step back, and I do expect, regardless of who lines up under center for the Huskies, I expect a Hamilton win because we know that this Huskies team is very, very strong.
Yeah, this is going to be a game where there's a lot of star power. Recognizable names. You're going to be playing against Donovan McNabb Jr., Ryder Nochi, who, yep. So it's some fantastic football players over at Brophy, Bishop Allen. I hope that they can, if Hamilton puts up 70 again, that's great for us, right? Yes. But what's actually great for Hamilton in the long run is competitive football. That's the thing that will kind of train you up on where it is you want to go.
To get to play in December.
Yeah, you schedule Brophy with the hope that it's iron sharpening iron. That's what you hope for. So, some people might see a blowout win and you're like, that's perfect. Like, that's a true show of dominance. And it is good, but, the level of competition you have early in the season truly shapes how things are going to play out for you as a team. And that's not an assumption. That's not like ideology from me. It's just, it's Sean Aguano's philosophy. It's Rick Garrison's philosophy. It was Steve Bellis's philosophy. There's 13 championships right there. It's Chris McDonald's philosophy. Mm-hmm. So you're going to add a couple of more on top.
Wow.
Of that. Okay. Don't argue with me. Argue with 15 rings. It's the whole. Well, Chris McDonald has some of those Hamilton rings too, because he was on that staff. But it really, you really want to be tested early on, so you know what to fix, so you don't settle into thinking your stuff's sweet. Almost a word you can't say, but you really want that challenge. And so Brophy is telling people that they're more experienced, that they lost a couple of really good players, but for the most part, returning half their starters, returning a lot of contributors. I don't think they'll have the shell shock against Hamilton that you're talking about. Hamilton, on the other hand, you do also want to hope that maybe you're good enough to not have to run Jack Scully out there at all. I'd
like to see the running game for Hamilton get going.
Me too, even though there's going to be a lot of people there that want to see Oliver Brothers cook. And I don't blame you. And if you're gonna buy season tickets to one team this year, you might as well go out and witness, one of the best pair of receivers we've ever had, right? But I want to see Jack Scully be afforded as much time as possible. I would love to see some other players maybe get some experience in case they're going to be relied upon. So I think the interesting thing for anybody watching Hamilton is who takes the field, how different do they look from week one and on. But definitely don't be discouraged or confused if the game ends up being closer than it was last year. The offense doesn't look as fluid as it did last year. Like that, we're not looking for perfection from Hamilton. We're looking for something that can be sustainable, and that might mean that they need to make a couple of tough choices as far as who gets on the field. They
don't need style points.
That's right. And when you have 14 returning starters, it's not about stuffing the stat sheet anymore. It is very, very much about stuffing the run, right? And establishing the run and establishing the identity that you're going to play with throughout the season. So very excited for this game. Don't expect it to be a nail biter, but I'm hoping for some good football and some adversity for the Huskies.
Absolutely, yes. They indeed need the adversity. Like you said, we want to see them at a sustainable level all year long, and they certainly have the talent to do that. Speaking of talent, the final game that we will speak about, the Chandler Wolves at the Basha Bears, Saturday night, ESPN, 7:30 local start time. No real predictions here from me. It's a rematch of the title game a year ago. The atmosphere is going to be fantastic. I'll say this, Ralph. Remember that 6-year period where the average final score was like 50-7 Chandler? It was just nuts.
Yeah. Where you had three and 7 Basha teams making the playoffs and getting wrecked.
It was nuts.
The first year of our podcast. The first year of our podcast was the first time that happened. It was game 9, 49-7 Basha, and then second round of the playoffs. 49-7 Chandler, second round of the playoffs, 49-21 Chandler. Then it happened the very next year where Chandler beat them 55-10 and then 55-0 in the second round of the playoffs.
Correct. How ironic also that my first ever high school game in Arizona was Chandler against Basha. High scoring game. That was it wasn't a blowout. It was one of those Nate Phillips. Remember him back in the day? He had an amazing game, but Chandler wound up coming back to win that game. It's just an amazing scenario between these two teams. Now, here's the thing. The last time that Chandler has been held to single digits, the last 3 times have all been at the hands of the Basha Bears. The title game a year ago, there was the Dylan Raiola semifinal game from a handful of years ago. Then there was one other 14-7 game mixed in. So it's some of the things I'd like to see. I want to see Noah Roberts get live behind that big offensive line. I want to see him get to where it's like, oh, wow, yeah, that dude is going to Texas. I want to see him dominate. I don't want to see Will Menzel be the leading ground gainer for Chandler. I want to see him sling it in the air, which we know he can, but I want to see a chess match. I want to see all that talent on the field. I want them to do well on both sides of the ball, of course.
Yes, and this particular matchup between Basha and Chandler, it's 11-6 Chandler in favor of Chandler. I'm going to ask you, Brett, do you know, because Basha has won 5 in a row, pretty well known that Basha has flipped the script on Chandler winning 11, Basha winning 5. Do you know, because this is right before you arrived in Arizona, before you moved to Arizona, do you know what the score was of the very first ever matchup between Chandler and Basha was? And do you know who helped beat Chandler in that game?
Wow, who helped beat Chandler? All right, so we're saying Basha won the game.
Basha did win the game, yes.
Wow, we already talked about Nate Phillips, the stud receiver, who wound up going on to U of A. Another Basha Bear. 'Cause I'm trying to think the first quarterback that I remember for Basha, Zach Whirlinger, because I think it was Ryan Kelly after him. So I don't think I'm too familiar with the Bears roster in, let's say, 2011.
Okay, so 2011, a little bit of history here. 2011 Basha was an Arena League football team. They opened their season 6-0, averaging about 55 points a game, including 58 that they put up on Chandler with the help of wide receiver Deontay Sykes.
Oh, wow.
Who would eventually transfer to Chandler and win the very first game over Hamilton, making Deontay Sykes the only player in the history of our show to beat Perry, Basha, Chandler, and Hamilton. And so
that's crazy.
But yeah, so and interestingly enough, that 2011 Basha team that was averaging 55 a game went into week 7 and got 63 dropped on them by none other than Jeremy Hathcock and the Desert Ridge Jaguars.
Holy shoot.
Yeah, it's the nonsense of that season is kind of what inspired the starting of Seatown Rivals, because if Bash is going to be out here putting up Arena League scores and Chandler's going to have games on ESPN like we're talking about right now against Hamilton, you got a new high school in Perry. Maybe this city deserves some coverage of its own. So that was actually a season that kind of helped inspire getting us kicked off in the first place. And then there was an 11-game break, and finally Basha was able to with the help of Damon Williams and a great defense and Chris McDonald's expertise, they were able to flip the script. And Chris McDonald actually lost his first couple of games against Chandler.
Yep.
That goes to show you how he's built the program up over time. The only thing I have to say about this game, because, whatever happens, happens. We've had ESPN come to this city multiple times. We've had ESPN come to the state of Arizona multiple times. We've had multiple occasions of Chandler teams being involved in ESPN games, whether it's an intra-city matchup or whether it's against out-of-state opponents or in-state opponents.
Mm-hmm.
The lesson that I think people need to learn, and it's tough because you cycle the kids and parents out every single year. When you get a game on ESPN, you are inviting people into your home and into your program that have no investment in your program whatsoever.
Very true.
You are going to have people watching in Connecticut. You're going to have people watching in Orlando, Florida. They're going to know your kids' social media handles, and they're going to tweet at them, and some of those things might not be very kind. When you invite attention, you invite all attention, not just good attention. There is a difference between fame and infamy, and fame has its own curses. You never want to be on the side of infamy. And in my personal opinion, we had Hamilton embarrass themselves against Saguaro on an ESPN game with the way that they behaved. And so you have to understand that that's going to live for a very, very long time. You got to prepare your kids. And I very much believe Ty Wisdom and Chris McDonald have the ability to do this. But you do have to prepare your kids that this isn't just your typical thing that's got a shaky camera on NFHS Network. There's going to be sideline shots. If you're talking trash, if you're being unsportsmanlike, if you're flirting with a girl in the crowd, if you're talking back to your coach, it all becomes conversation for people who don't know you, don't know your struggle, don't know your family, have no investment in your success. And you don't want people talking about you in public spaces because you just lose control of any and all narratives. So this is a great opportunity in the NIL era for you to go out and for you to represent your school and yourself and your parents' name, your guardians, whoever helped you up to this point. This is an awesome opportunity for you to go and show what your program is made of. If you show your ass, it's going to be talked about. And that was something that happened at the end of that Hamilton, Saguaro game, where they were waving bye to Saguaro, and it became a talking point. And so, these kids Children, high school students are getting tweeted at by people from all over the country, calling them bums, calling them unsportsmanlike, saying they were raised wrong. Don't invite that type of stuff. There's going to be a massive elevated level of excitement and anxiety going into an ESPN game. This is your best opportunity to tune it out, especially if you're a high-level player who's going to be on TV every Saturday for the next 4 years and maybe some Sundays after that. You have to be able to handle the spotlight. You have to be able to handle this moment. So my hope is that the teams are prepared, that they represent the schools well, and they don't invite a level of attention that it's very, very hard for teenagers to handle by losing their composure, being overexcited. But at the same time, you can't play tight. Can't play for the cameras. Just go out, be yourself, and represent your people well. Because that's the last thing I want to do is be fighting with Jimmy from Tulsa online who is calling, a junior cornerback anything but a child of God on the internet. So I don't know.
No, that's a great point. No, that's an excellent point that you made. It's like it's a national game, and the people who are watching the game online, or I'll say on ESPN, do not have a interest necessarily in what we have an interest in, not only with Seton, but in our state. I think the state of Arizona takes a lot of pride in having high school football elevated. But like you said, if Jimmy in Nebraska or somebody in Ohio or Florida is watching and they don't like what they see, they're grabbing their phones, they're tweeting, they don't care. Oh, yeah, look at how they behave in Arizona. Oh, they're not really talented, all of that stuff. So, yes, when you invite attention, you invite all attention. And so now that's a great point. And that's a terrific way for us to close our show. We talked about all 8 teams. We wrap it up with the national broadcast. I'll be over at Perry watching Jeremy Hathcock and the Pumas take care of, I keep saying Willow Canyon. That's a totally Cactus Canyon. All of these canyons and views and deserts, they all blend the same, but certainly wishing all of our CUSD teams and our 2 schools of faith, we're wishing them very, very well. As we used to say at the beginning, plenty of teams, plenty of talent, plenty of action, and we are so blessed to be in partnership with the city of Chandler. He's Ralph Amsden. I'm Brett Quintyne. Adam Beadle will be back with us next week. This is the Seton Rivals Podcast.